Welcome to another edition of The Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics that write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc Kramer, serial entrepreneur who consults with family businesses and entrepreneurs. And currently, I'm teaching entrepreneurship at Vinh University in Hanoi, Vietnam. Today's guest is Bianca D'Alessio, author of the book Mastering Intentions: 10 Practices to Amplify Your Power and Lead with Lasting Impact. Bianca, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you as well. So before we get into the book, could you give us a little bit about your professional background and your entrepreneurial experience? Because what you told me before is an amazing journey, even at such a young age.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I'll start from the beginning to give some context. So, after college, I was one of those people who didn't really know what I was going to do, but I knew I loved working with people, and I knew I loved volunteering and helping people. So, I worked for a nonprofit. I did leadership development with women, and I traveled the country full time to different college campuses. Teaching workshops and seminars on public speaking and building confidence and all these things. And while I was doing that, I was looking at all of my peers who had started in corporate America, and I felt really far behind and that I wasn't smart enough to make it in corporate America. So I said, okay, I'll get my real estate license and see how that goes. Well, day one back in New York City, I landed a job at one of the top real estate brokerage firms. And now it's been about 13 years that I'm selling real estate. Um, and I started my business like most other real estate agents, working with individual buyers and individual sellers. But I very quickly realized that there was a niche in the market, and that if I wanted to perform at the highest tier, I needed to control a lot of the supply and I needed to operate in volume. And I'm a strategist at my core. So I found the opportunity in the market to start working with real estate developers. So my main business now is I work with real estate developers who are building condo towers in New York City. From site acquisition, they come to me. So they're looking to buy a plot of land and they want to know what they should build on it. So I tell them, based on the buildings that have sold in the past and what's slated to come on the market in the future, what they should build. How many one bedrooms, two bedrooms, three bedrooms, what type of marble we should use in the kitchen versus in the bathrooms, how big the bedroom should be based on who our buyer is. Is it a bachelor? Is it a family? So looking at all of this demographic information to say, how are we building and constructing a building for the buyer, but years before it'll ever come to market. And so now I've had the pleasure, I started my company 4 years ago now, and I have consulted on, sold, and marketed over 120 condo towers throughout New York City, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and into the Hamptons and international markets. And that's what brings me here today.
So before we get into the book, has the new mayor changed the equation for how people are going to be investing in New York?
So that's a loaded question. I think from day one, people became concerned with what this means for real estate. I think that there's been, because of policy changes and shifts, there's been a lot of things that have happened in the condo for sale market versus the rental development market. I think we expected a lot more developers to pull out of the New York market. The reality is that there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of money in New York, and people aren't leaving. Where we are starting to see the shift now is with this new change for the pied-à-terre tax. So recently, a tax was passed in New York City, taxing pied-à-terre or secondary homeowners or investor purchasers in New York City. And that is definitely starting to have some impact on the market. I would say that it's more heavily impacting the 30, 40, $50 million plus market. However, based on what we know about uh, economics and pricing, there will be some sort of a trickle down effect that starts to happen once the $20 million market starts not moving. How does that impact pricing and all of the tiers below that? So we haven't felt the full impact of that, but I do anticipate we will start to feel some of that. But what that will do will start to create lots of opportunity and the cycle will continue. So that's where we are kind of now on that.
I gotta believe, if somebody buys a $100 million apartment and it's being taxed as if it's worth 10 million, it doesn't seem equitable because the city
Mhm.
needs the money. And if you could afford $100 million
Yep.
apartment, you can certainly afford the taxes on $100 million apartment, whatever that number is. So I kind of think that's reasonable.
Yeah, listen, I think that there's going to be, like anything, a shift and a recalibration for people to realize a new normal. I do think what is not helpful, I definitely believe in the city getting their money and implementing taxes where they need to be. But I think villainizing entrepreneurs or people who make a lot of money and deterring them from coming to New York is not the
Not good
right
for New York.
attitude. It's not good
Yeah,
for New York.
sure.
They have lots of options. So
Yeah, yeah. They have to think about how do you come to a compromise for sure.
for sure.
So let's go to your book and
Yeah.
practice one, articulate your personal purpose.
Mhm.
You write that purpose begins with understanding and owning your life story. What was the defining moment when you finally understood your own purpose?
um, so I think, where I talk about in the book is really understanding so much of knowing who you are and how you show up is how you were raised, where you are today, how you react and respond. And so I think for me, I've always found a lot of comfort in being around people, and I love teamwork. I'm not a solo person. I love being around people. And when I started to look at that and how I perform best, I realized that it's in building things together and helping people grow together. I grow more when I'm growing alongside someone else. And so I don't necessarily think there was one particular defining moment. I think it's been a series of defining moments throughout the course of my life that keeps pulling me back to I'm better when I'm around people. And so how do I build a business that means shared success? That means working with other people. That means growing together. Um, and so I think that's kind of been the root of it. And then how does that actually come into practice? Real estate sales is such a highly competitive industry. Where it's, I want to eat your lunch and I'm going to take this from you. I never wanted to build that business. Like, there is enough business to go around for everyone. So I think by embodying that, of like, there's enough for everyone. How do we grow together? How do we think about how we create and share deals together? That has become a lot of what my purpose exists in the real estate space right now. But I think what's really important about purpose is realizing that it changes and shifts and grows over time as you gain perspective. And so it's okay for your purpose to change and to grow and to mold and to morph as you develop as a person.
Um, Good advice for the young people that I'm teaching at Vin University. Many people struggle to separate what society expects from what they truly want.
Mm.
How can listeners identify the difference? And this is huge in Asia.
Yeah, I think it's huge everywhere right now because I think social media culture is so detrimental because there's a lot of white noise. There's a lot of
Mhm.
white noise about what looks good and what feels good and the flashy things that exist out there. But the only thing that really matters is what feels right internally and to you. And not measuring what brings you happiness next to what brings someone else happiness, because what brings someone else happiness may be the flashy car and this and that and the big vacation or whatever it is, but what brings you happiness may be quiet and alone time with your family or the solo trip or whatever it is. Whatever it is in whatever arena it exists in, what feels good to you? What do you feel aligned doing? And so I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with. But I think by looking inward, by saying what brings me joy and what brings me happiness, where do I feel out of alignment? Where do I feel when I'm with certain people, I start chasing things that just don't feel good? And what sacrifices, if the thing that you want is the flesh, what sacrifices am I willing to make to have that? Because I think this notion of having it all, I don't fully believe in, because you can't have one more than one priority, and you can't have it all at the same exact time. There is inherently always something that is going to take more priority over the others. And when that exists, you need to compromise in other arenas of your life. So, at what point in time are you willing to make a certain compromise or a certain sacrifice in order to achieve or get what you want in another area, if that makes sense?
Do you think a lot of young people, at least this started, I have two daughters, and started
Hmm.
with one that I was featured on NPR from the entrepreneurial stuff I was doing, and they asked the host asked my oldest, "Are you going to be like your dad?" She said, "No, I just want to work 8 to 5, 9 to 5. That's it." And it didn't work out that way. Now she's CEO of a global PR firm, and she's working 6 days a week, and she
And
goes on
international
vacation.
hours and
She's, yeah, yeah. And she goes, it's impossible to have work-life balance.
agreed.
Uh, Especially today when it's more competitive now than any time in history because you're
Hmm.
competing globally with people and now you're competing against AI on top
Absolutely.
of it.
Hmm.
And so this idea that you could work 40 hours a week. And even with technology helping you, there's always more and more and more that can be done.
Yep.
How do you coach the young people who enter your business and enter your firm about the reality of what they're gonna need to do to be successful?
Well, if you want to stand out in that top tier of excellence, there is no work-life balance, there is no set hours, and it is incredibly, incredibly competitive. But the competition, I believe, so much so needs to be turned inward. How can I be better than the version of myself yesterday? How can I learn more? How can I challenge myself? How can I think outside of the box? What else can I be doing? Not what is the person next to me doing? Why do they have more success? I've never found more success by looking towards other people's success and being self-critical on myself as to why I wasn't achieving or accomplishing what they were getting. The moments where I've always had the most success well, was that worth it to the decision that I made, that I chose to go that route? Maybe I should have gone that route. Or how can I enhance or learn more? What systems and what routines do I need to put into place? But if you want to be competing at that top level sphere, I wouldn't even say it's in the top 1%, but because the way AI is shifting, if you want to be in that top 15%, like there are no boundaries on work. And you have to constantly be challenging and reading and innovating and learning. And that's just the reality of it. But if that's not what you want, like that's also okay. If you want the 9 to 5, but being aware of what is happening to the 9 to 5 sphere and world, and how does that cap your income? And if you're okay with that, like there's a reality about that. You will not be very wealthy or very quote unquote successful in any industry if you're putting parameters or restrictions on what you're willing to do, when you're willing to do it, and the times you want to work.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that even started 40 years ago when
Mhm.
companies no longer were giving lifetime jobs. That the idea is you would and ask your parents, the idea that you would work for more than one company in your life, then you were called a job hopper. Today, if you hadn't worked for 7 to 10 companies, people wonder what's wrong with you. Uh,
Totally. Yeah.
that you probably don't have very good skills if you haven't worked for a bunch of different people.
Yep.
And now people get downsized even if they're doing a great job.
Hmm.
So you have to be willing to go and do those things.
And
In
I would love to say something on that because I
yeah,
love, you know, it's amazing how much you can learn from different people based on the way that they do things. And I'm such a believer, all of the jobs early in my career, really until my late 20s, like I was compensated so far below market, but worked for such incredible people that the skills and the mentality and the emotional regulation that I learned from them because I was willing to make less money but learned way more. It set me ahead tenfold. And I think there's nothing wrong with that when we're talking to young people about what's this person doing, what's that person doing, or the pressures of society. I work with a lot of college age students who are saying, I expect to make X, Y, and Z when I get out of school. My first job, I made $13,000. My second year in business, I made $11,000. And you know what? And then all of a sudden, because I was willing to put in the work and I worked the hardest, I was given more opportunities and more resources than anyone else because people saw like I was willing to do it. And so there's nothing wrong with taking that approach as long as you are actually learning something and being mentored by someone incredible.
Yeah, tell them how big your business is now, how many people work for you, and how much in assets you're managing.
So I manage $10 billion in international real estate assets, and I have 25 people who work for me right now. And
Yeah,
so,
congratulations and
thank you.
huge success. And practice to activate with intention. You challenge traditional goal setting by focusing on intentions instead of just measurable outcomes, which you've kind of been alluding to now.
Mhm.
Why do you believe this approach creates more lasting success?
So if you can't tell already, I'm someone who's very rigid with my goal setting and what I want to do, what I want to accomplish. Like that's what you're taught in school. That's what you're taught growing up, right? Create SMART goals. You're measurable, you're specific, you're time sensitive, your goals that you're looking to achieve in a period. And I had always been that person. Every New Year's, I'd write my New Year's resolution. On my birthday, I would become self critical on how I was doing with achieving my goals. And I started realizing I was just chasing numbers, right? And the dollar amount I wanted to do for my business, the number of pounds I wanted to lose on the scale, the number of countries I wanted to visit in a year. But I was taking away from all of the other things that I was learning throughout that process, right? It's not about the dollar, it's not about the number on the scale of the weight that you're losing, but what about the disciplined practice of going to the gym every single day? Why was I giving the actual number more value than what the practice or the habit or the routine was teaching me about who I was becoming as a person? And so I was becoming hypercritical of myself all of the time and very, very disappointed when I was still accomplishing incredible things. So I needed to shift my mindset around my goals and what I was accomplishing, and instead wanted to focus on creating intentions. What was the area of my life that I felt was lacking? And how was I going to create routines and behaviors and habits around becoming that better version, that better person that I wanted to be? If I set that one intention, how would I start creating and making decisions through the lens of this is what I'm seeking and this is what I want in my life? How do I cut out the noise that does not align with who I'm trying to become? And so I'd love to put that into practice if that's okay, you know. I do this every single year for myself now. And my intention for this year was freedom. I wanted to create freedom, financial freedom, freedom in my business, freedom in my routines, freedom in where I could travel, freedom. So, how do I bring all of my decision making through the freedom lens? What clients am I working with? Do they align with my values or do they become a time and energy suck? Instead of focusing on the dollar amount that they were going to bring, unfortunately, in this arena, I'm able to do that. But the time and energy suck clients, they end up costing me more money because then I can't take on other business. So they don't align with freedom. Say no to the business. That's never something I've given myself permission to do before. Okay, I've now built a business and a brand around my personal brand and my face. Well, that doesn't create freedom because what happens when I want to step away for a minute? How do I now start to think about how am I bringing other people to the forefront of my leadership team to be making bigger C-suite level decisions that don't need my approval? How am I empowering them? How am I training them? That became through the freedom lens of how am I changing my training, onboarding, and development of my C-suite employees. And so I did that through almost every area of my life of what decisions, what changes do I need to make to align with that intention? And what I find at the end of the year is that I'm working towards something that is life-changing. Not just a feel-good, pat myself on the back goal, but I'm actually becoming a different person, a stronger, a better, a more well-rounded person because I'm focusing on the full development and the full growth.
How can someone stay intentional when life constantly throws unexpected distractions and setbacks their way?
Be- The first thing that's super important is to give yourself grace. Life happens. Be kind to yourself. Not everything needs to be a marathon race, but I do believe that momentum and movement is very, very important. So even when life gets, and I have had some very, very difficult seasons of life, um, but even when life gets very, very difficult, to continue one foot in front of the other, moving forward. Stagnation and sitting still, uh, even though sometimes it feels like the easier choice, um, you could get stuck in that. And so creating movement in your routine, literally physical movement, like going outside for a walk, like small movement, doing the dishes, making one call that you didn't want to make and feeling good about that. So I think grace is very, very important. Um, but also recognizing small wins, like you made the call. I didn't want to make the call, but I did it. Wow, like I got the one client that I set out to get. Whatever it is, whatever that win looks like to you at whatever point in time, like give yourself that celebratory win, and recognition. And I think a lot of that, if you're going through one of those seasons, um, is journal. Like journaling is and writing has been, that's why I wrote the book, has been, it's become my therapy. And so for a lot of people, I know a lot of people don't love to journal. Um, I've created a new journaling practice, and I've now even started leaning into AI and ChatGPT and Claude to actually like prompt my journal entries. I used to do all of this manually of like, what am I feeling today? What was the hardest part of my day? What was my small win? Create a folder, create a project in whatever AI program you're using, and have it start to question and force you to reflect and write on it and build on that every day. I think that's such an incredible use of AI and technology today to help prompt you so it feels, less strange or whatever it may be, but it could really be quite thought provoking and bring a lot of things to the surface that you may not have been giving yourself the win or the credit for.
What's the culture you've built in your company, and what kind of people fit best into your culture?
So I think one thing that I needed to realize early on, which I struggled with when I started my company, is that I am not for everyone. And that is okay. The people that I am for really get me, and I am really for. But I am super fast moving. I expect excellence. And I shouldn't have to apologize for that. In the beginning, I used to, think that I could save everyone and bring everyone along on the ride. You can't. So I need self starters. I need people who want to be challenged. I need people who want to be uncomfortable, people who want to think outside of the box, people who are willing to fail. Like, I love that so many people on my team, like, the life is about failure, right? How do we embrace failure? How do we learn from failure? How do we learn collectively from failure to help everyone else grow a little bit faster, to get higher on the curve without needing to make the mistake themselves? And so those are the people that I'm looking for. But, in our team meetings, we celebrate each other's wins. We talk about what we are proud of each other in the room, or how someone has helped us. And they may not have even realized how they impacted our business. They just did it out of the kindness of their heart. You know, for me, my career is my life, and I love it, and I love the people that I work with. So that's why I don't even care saying that. Like, the people I work with are my friends, and I love spending 12 hours a day with them, and they're the first people I call in the morning and the last people I talk to at night. And that's the environment. And so, that's the culture that I wanted to create. It may not work in ecosystem may not work in everyone's world, but from a sales perspective, holding everyone else accountable and growing together, and never competing within the team or with each other. We collaborate and we share. We can compete with the outside world, but we don't compete internally. I think that's very important.
In practice three, act purposefully. You introduced the idea of auditing our relationships. Why is the company we keep so important to living intentionally?
I mean, the company we keep is everything, you know? The people we surround ourselves with change your mindset. They change our motivation, they change our inspiration, they change our perspective. And so being very aware of, I'm a big energy person, who is filling your cup or who is silently chipping away at your self confidence, at your self worth, at doesn't believe in your goals. Like, that to me, and it's taken me a while to get there, they just don't belong in my life. Or you create boundaries around where they exist in your life, or you become aware of who are you actually celebrating your wins with or asking advice, you know? For a lot of people, like for me, I don't ask advice from someone or perspective from someone who hasn't achieved the thing that I am asking about, right? Like I don't need to ask someone how to be a great mom who's not a mom. I don't need to ask someone about how to sell and exit their business if they've never sold and exited their business. And so being very intentional with who you're going to for advice. And another thing that I've realized, in the last few years is that it's okay to have a smaller circle. Um,
I agree with you. I agree with you totally. In my life, I have gotten rid of longtime friends,
yeah.
like somebody who we were in each other's wedding
Hmm.
and or somebody that we as couples used to go out with. And then I realized that he wasn't a good person,
Yep.
or that, they didn't reciprocate in the making the same investment of
Yep.
time that I was
Hmm.
making in them, and I'm like, well, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
And so I just write them off.
Yep. Exactly. And that's scary in the beginning, and then you'll start to if you start to create it as a practice in your life, you'll start to realize like that person, I'm giving them more than they're giving to me, and that just doesn't feel right. So,
After I did the first one, it got much easier.
yep. Yeah, exactly.
Um, how do you know when it's time to strengthen a relationship versus letting it go?
Um, so I think being very aware of relationship dynamics is super important. Um, and your values. To me, if you do not align, if your values do not align with someone, they may be in your life for a period of time. And I think this exists. I was going to say more specifically in business, but as I'm thinking about it, no. Like even family, your values may not align. So I think the values need to be aligned in order for you to be willing to invest more into them. And I think if you're constantly having the same tension points with a specific relationship and the other person isn't willing to put in the work to change their behavior to make you feel like a priority, like it's okay letting it go.
Um, and I like this question I developed for you. What's the biggest mistake successful people make when choosing the people they surround themselves with?
um what is the biggest mistake? I would say there's a few. Um, I think the chase becomes very intoxicating. Um, but I think the biggest thing for me that I realized, um, I'm a woman in a man's industry. And I started to really look at my circle of business people that I was looking around. And what's very important to me is being um, a great mentor, a great leader, a great business owner, a great family member. And I started realizing that a lot of these people I was surrounding myself with were just great business people. They did not have the other buckets. And so they were making decisions about their family, about their money, about their time, about the people they surrounded themselves with from the business lens. And that is fine because that worked for them. But I started realizing my decisions were being shifted through that lens. That's why the people you surround yourself with are so important. I realized that I needed to take a step back and recalibrate the entrepreneurs that I was surrounding myself with to people who were honest and authentic about the struggle, who were willing to be part of the growth journey with me, um, and who were looking at the relationship as we're learning from each other and we're growing together. And that's why I value you and you value me. And so I think that became a very important shift of having that mutual respect and that mutual understanding. And again, a lot of it goes back to values, to making sure that your values are aligned with the people that you're surrounding yourself with, because whether you real like there is no doubt silently over time you start to embrace the mindset and the mentality and the decision making of the people that you surround yourself with.
I look for honesty from them that if
Yeah.
I'm going in the wrong direction, I want them to tell me. When I hired people, I would tell them, if I find out that you had doubts about what we agreed on and
Mhm.
didn't tell me, you're fired. And I had that happen, and I fired the person on the spot in front of everybody. When she
Wow.
said, I didn't think this was going to work out, I said, you're fired. And she said, why? I said, because you had your chance to stop us before we drove the car off the road. And even if we decide to go down the same route, you not telling us what your thoughts were impacted the rest of us. Can't have somebody like that on the team that held back what they thought was the right way to go. So I said, um, you're never going to be looked at negatively by telling what you think is the truth. What really happens for me is if you held back and you know that, or you think that we're going to make this big mistake, it's not fair to everybody else. So I think the people who don't tell you the truth all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of leaders want people to just go along with what they tell them, and
Yeah.
hence why I think some of the biggest brands in history have failed is
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't have people pushing back.
Yeah.
And I
Listen,
tell them, don't push back just for the sake of pushing back. I only want you to tell me when you really think something's wrong here.
yeah. And I think that's why feedback on all directions is so important within a corporate structure, especially in those early days as you're growing and building, to create the opportunity where your employees can come to you as the leader and you could go to them and you could have an honest conversation with feedback and with areas for growth. If you create that as part of the culture, then it doesn't become as scary to voice and share your opinion. Um, but modeling that is very, very important.
I had two lists. One list was all the ideas that people came up with that we implemented, who it was, what they did, and how we compensate them for
Mhm.
these ideas. And the other one was the list of when people told me I was wrong and what we did
Love.
about it.
Mhm.
So they could see that I wanted to show this in writing. So when they joined us, they wouldn't hesitate to share ideas or share their opinions. And
Yeah.
that's why I did it in every organization. Question from
Love
the
that.
audience. If you have a difficult business decision to make and need to temporarily say no to the other party in a deal, how can you communicate that decision without damaging the relationship or closing the door to future opportunities? What advice do you have for delivering respectful no thank you that preserves goodwill and keeps the possibility of doing business together in the future? Also, would you call them or send an email?
Always call. Always have a conversation over the phone first, because I think that conversation's harder to have than hiding between a computer screen or a phone. And so that gains you a lot of respect right there. And I think um, there's nothing wrong with saying no. It's the way that you do it. Listen, I think this opportunity is incredible. I love the idea. It's just not, I want to be able to give my all to you. And right now, I have other things that are going on that I just cannot make this a priority today. It doesn't mean that it's not in general, but I just want to make sure that when we do this, we go in full steam ahead, 100%, and we're at the same exact level of where we should be operating. Is it okay if we table this and we come back to this idea a few months from now? I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that.
In chapter 4, harness your inner confidence. You describe confidence as something we build rather than something we're born with. What daily habits helped you develop lasting confidence?
So I confidence is 100% something that you build over time. It compounds. And you build confidence by doing things that make you uncomfortable or that are difficult, and then you feel good about. Like it's almost that simple. What was something that you didn't want to do and you did it, and then give yourself the credit for doing it. And so I almost track that regularly, like the difficult conversation I didn't want to have. The person that I had to fire, that I really liked them as a person. I didn't want to fire them, but I handled the conversation well, and they left feeling like the door was still open and that I respected them, and it just wasn't the right opportunity. The business opportunity that I said no to, but I know that I kept the door open for the future. All of those things are learned skills that create confidence. So the second time you do it, it's slightly easier. The same thing with cutting the people out of your life that we were talking about a few minutes ago. The first one's really difficult. The second one's a little less difficult. The 15th person, it's easy. It's easy. Like it, like it becomes muscle memory. And so I think that that happens with a lot of areas in our personal life and our professional life. Is how do you develop the muscle memory, the confidence, to continue to push forward, to challenge yourself to do a little bit more. And that comes from having done it before.
You introduced the concept of brain bully. How can people recognize when their inner critic is controlling their decisions? Explain what that means.
So I started working with a coach a few years ago. And at that point in time, I had built the business. I was managing this portfolio. I was like, I just don't feel smart enough. And she's like, what? Why do you keep telling yourself that you're not smart enough? And she's like, that is your brain speaking to you and keeping you small. And I think that our brain does that a lot of the time. Is it pushes us down because it wants us to be safe. Our body wants to be safe, and our brain tries to keep us there. And so this brain bully is that inner critic of telling you that don't go after that opportunity, or you're not smart enough, or you can't handle that, or, you know, in light of all of these opportunities or challenges or exciting new ventures, well, what if it's not successful? Well, what if I do it wrong? And so um, I still have my brain bully. It still comes out all of the time. I am still critical of myself, but I've started to train myself on how do I speak positively to myself to try to actively silence it before it creeps in. Um, I've been speaking to myself in front of the mirror for a very, very long time. I started doing that as a child when I was struggling with my mental health, of like, you could do this, Bianca, you got this. And now I've almost developed that into a team exercise of before we go into a big pitch or a big meeting, like, let's hype ourselves up. We are and we need to be our number one hype person. No one is going to believe in us. I promise you, no one will believe in you as much as you can believe in you. You may have people who support you. There's no doubt about it. But you need to learn how to be the captain of your cheerleading squad for yourself. And so that's what it's all about. How do you talk positively to yourself? How do you know when self-doubt starts creeping in, you say, you know what? No, I can do this. What was the learned experience of I know that I've experienced that before, and I've persevered and I've been successful and I've overcome. Okay, that's the learned moment. I can do this. I've got this. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I know I can make these decisions. People want to surround themselves with me. Like, you have to talk to yourself and hype yourself up. I believe in that so much.
What did your parents do for a living? I know your mom's your CFO now, but she had
Yeah.
been CFO for other people. What did your mom do before she came to you, and what does your dad do?
So my father was in real estate, and he did become a real estate developer. He's no longer in that area. And my mom started as a CPA. Her and my father built a business together. Then they got divorced. I watched my mom grow her career from a CPA to the CFO of a hedge fund. And now I'm fortunate enough that she works for me as my CFO.
That's awesome. So, did your parents instill confidence in you, or or they kind of left you with doubts and hence you ended up having these doubts about yourself? You know, because sometimes you could, I find myself that you could give your kids all the confidence in the world and still they're doubting themselves and you're like scratching your head about why is that?
So I definitely wouldn't say my parents were like, Bianca, you're the best, you're the prettiest, you're the smartest. There wasn't that.
Well,
But
you
what
want them
the
to be authentic. I mean, you don't
correct.
want them just telling you. I would never do that with my own kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what they did do that I look back and that gave me confidence is when we would call a restaurant to order takeout, I would call the restaurant to place the order for my family. I would write it down on a list, and my dad would say, if you want to have dinner tonight, if we're ordering pizza, you're placing the order. The same with when we would go out to a restaurant to eat, look at the waiter and say what you want. When my parents would introduce me to their friends, hold your hand out and shake their hand and tell them your name. And so if I needed to return a pair of clothes that didn't fit, okay, go up to the counter, ask if there's a sales associate, say that you have a return. So it was giving me the tools at a very young age to learn to speak for myself, to find my voice, to articulate what I was saying. And it was those small things that compounded over time, and that became my confidence, that became my voice, that became the muscle memory, right? And so I think through that I realized, okay, I don't hold back. I say what I want to say. I could go into a store. I've traveled the entire world by myself. I would say so much of that comes back to the person who knew who got lost. Okay, let's look at a map. Bianca, look at the map and find directions. That instilled the confidence more than thinking that I was the greatest, because I was not the greatest, but I knew that if I worked, they always told me if I worked hard enough, if I was willing to put the time in, if I focused on myself, then I could continue to grow and achieve and do whatever I had wanted.
So it sounds like to me they did a great job. I know with
They
my own
did.
kids, I used to drive them crazy by telling them options. So I would never make the decision for them.
Yes, I love that.
And they said, Dad, stop treating us like a consulting client. Tell us what you think. I said, no. I said, I got to set you up for future success. So I've got to tell you, here are the options. You decide what you want to do. If nobody dies, it's no big deal. You'll learn and you'll be that much better. And so now as
Totally.
adults, they said, oh, that was really smart because now I know how to think through problems and
Yes.
I don't have to call you and ask you every time I need to make a decision. Uh,
And it's amazing. And to me, I think that's so incredible. Thank you for sharing that, because the ability to make decisions, and it's a skill. And I look at so many of uh, the people that I mentor where they're like, I don't know what decision to make. It doesn't matter. Just make one and go with it, and when you make the wrong decision, you make another decision. That's okay. And I think that's the biggest thing that no one taught me when I was going to start my company is I'm not going to have all the right answers. Truly, I had no idea what I was doing in my mid 20s, starting a company and managing people. But what I did better than anyone else who I was around was I made decisions and I moved really quick. And when the decision was wrong, I made another decision. And so decision making is such an important part of it.
yeah, you're 100% right because I learned I was running a group of magazines and I was telling the board I was really getting beat up after being always successful. And I said, well, here's, our different paths we can go under. And the CEO of this big bank who was on the board said, are you a consultant or are you the CEO of the company? Because I don't need you telling us the options. I just want to know what path you want to go. And so one of the board members ran a Fortune 500 and he pulled me, had lunch with me. He said, whenever you're lost, just keep walking. He said,
Mm,
and eventually the right path will show itself. But he said, if you stop walking, everybody goes into panic, and that's the last thing you need.
yeah.
And he told me I was 33 to this day. It's something I tell my students all the time. Um, one of the folks listening said, I know we are here to promote Bianca's book, but what is her most favorite book about business and confidence? And also, is her book available in an audio version?
Oh, well, I love that you asked. The audiobook came out this week, which is so exciting. Um, What Shoe
What
Dog is a
books have,
great, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
what
my
business books
audiobook's on
yeah.
Amazon anywhere you could get it anywhere.
So
Um
what other books have you read that impacted you?
hmm, I would say Shoe Dog's an amazing book, and I'm blanking on the name of another book, and I'm going to share it with you that I just recently read, and it was about all different athletes and what made the top 1% athletes the most successful, and it just talked about the discipline practice, and I'm blanking on the name. I read it a few weeks ago, but I'm going to get you that book too. It's not the winner's mentality. The unfair. No, no, no. I'm gonna botch the name, but I'm gonna get it for you so you could share with everyone. That book is amazing. And if you ever had any questions, you could always reach out to me and I could send it to you directly. Um, Bianca D'Alessio is my name on all social media, so don't be shy to reach out.
Awesome. In practice five, adopt a
Yeah.
winner's mindset. You explained that setbacks often become the foundation for future success. I totally believe that. Looking back, which setback ultimately became your greatest opportunity?
Um, okay, had a few. Which one's the greatest? So, prior to starting my company, I had started another company and I had three business partners. And within a year of that partnership starting, um, it had failed miserably. We were just not aligned with how we wanted to bring people on, how we wanted to train them, how we wanted to support them. Just, it was not the right partnership. And the other partners had cut me out of the business. They'd seen me as a threat and they'd cut me out of the business. And so I walked away from it was $1 billion in sales and unearned commissions that I said, I put my hands up. I could have fought a very long legal battle to try to come after it. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to focus on myself. Prior to that point in time, and I will preface this was 4 years ago. Um, I never saw myself as a CEO. I never saw myself as a number one. I never saw myself as someone who could lead a company. I had been the best number two, the best behind the scenes, the best operator there was. And I didn't know or see myself as anything different. And because of that failed partnership, I was left holding the bag of what do I do now? All of my business had been taken. I had needed to completely restart. How was I going to do it? How was I going to do it on my terms? How was I going to do it to be true to my values? And that felt good to me. And I had never saw myself as this person. And so what was horrible at that point in time of like, wow, how am I ever going to make this money back? How am I ever going to grow this business? I invested so much into these relationships. That was the start of my company today. And that is the start of the book, right? Who I become, like everything. And then finally, like morphed into exactly who it was supposed to be, who I was supposed to be for my whole life. I was just too afraid to act on it. It happened to me and it happened for me. And so that was the greatest gift that could have ever happened to me.
And you're a natural teacher. I mean, that's what you started out as,
Thank you.
and I could tell by writing the book and the
Thank
fact
you.
that Babson's interested in you teaching for them, which I think will be an amazing experience for you. How do high performers maintain optimism after repeated disappointments? And everybody goes through that.
Everyone does. So I think there's two things that I talk about in the book and I believe in. There's one thing that is toxic positivity, which is everything is great all of the time. Everything's good, 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 good. That's toxic. Everything is not good all of the time. Most of the
Mhm.
time in our world, when you're leading a very competitive industry, most things are going to shit.
Yeah.
But there's contagious positivity. And what I am the most contagiously positive person because even when taxes are going up and the market's crashing and this and that, my brain is programmed to always look for opportunity and to speak to the opportunity, not to speak to the disappointment, not to speak to the soundbite and to the clickbait that the news wants you to see of what is negative in the world. And so, um, I think if you start to, you have to filter the world through that lens of how do I seek and how do I look for the opportunity? Opportunity equals, in my mind, opportunity equals positivity. So, how do I start to look for where there's opportunity, where there's positivity, and lean into that, and to navigate the negativity, to navigate the disappointment. Um, and so, yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Um, does do you offer mentoring? That's one of the listeners.
I do. Please reach out to me directly, and I'd love to talk to you more about it.
Okay, and so you can write to me and I'll send you her address or they
Perfect.
can connect
LinkedIn's
with you on
great.
LinkedIn. It's
Yep.
great. So only contact me if you have a problem, then I'll make sure you get connected. What separates people who eventually succeed from equally talented people who eventually quit?
Uh, so staying power is crucial. I think no one tells you how long it actually takes in order to become successful or to feel like you've got it. Um, for me, I would say it was almost fast and it was a decade. Like it was a decade before I was like, ooh, I think I'm actually good at this and I have something. For a lot of people who are starting businesses, it could be even longer. I think there's a lot of things to like hitting the right market at the right time, and you could be in a lot of wrong cycles. And so staying power is super important. Surrounding yourself with the right people. Um, being willing to grow and to realize like as you're growing a business, your life is also happening around you, and your life's events will shift your business perspective, and being willing to talk about that. And I think for me, what's been so therapeutic and has allowed me to connect with people is to be so honest and authentic about that. About what's happening in my life, how that's changing how I think about my business, it's happening in my business, how that changes what happens in my life, and having it be this ongoing living organism that exists, and encouraging other people that I surround myself with to embody that same ability. Things that when I was, in my 20s, I said I would never, never do. I now find myself at this age saying, oh, yeah, I would do them. And like, I want to do them. And that actually excites me. And that's okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you also have to embrace failure
Yeah.
and realize that you're only going to get better. That if you're not
Yep.
failing, you're not really trying much
Oh,
at the end of the day.
I
And
agree.
I interviewed a Navy SEAL who trained elite Navy SEALs,
Hmm.
and I asked him what separates those people because when they select people to try out for Navy SEALs, they're the best of the best.
Yep.
And he said, it's not that you're the best athlete, the strongest, the fastest, whatever. He said, sense of humor.
Oh, I love that.
And he said, when the guys, you see them in the water and they have this chain, and the guys who are dead serious and they're just trying to deal with the pain and they're not joking, he said, those guys wash out. He said, when you're on a mission, he said, in order to reduce stress, you have to have a great sense of humor and be joking with people all the time. So he said, I could always see the guys who are going to make it through SEALs by their sense of humor. If they were funny and they could laugh about things, then they were going to make it. The other guys who couldn't, even if they were great athletes, most physically superior people, they just weren't mentally tough enough
Wow.
to get through it. I thought that was
That's
insightful.
amazing. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Um, Manifestation, and this is in practice 6, manifest your future. Manifestation is often misunderstood. How do you define it in a practical, results-oriented way?
Hmm. So I think the biggest thing for manifestation is manifesting the embodiment of the person who is able to achieve the thing that you are looking to achieve. It's not just the big house. It's not the boat. It's not the vacation. It's not, gosh, the book. I started manifesting the book when I was so young. Um, but it wasn't about the physical book. It was, what did I need to do? I needed to put myself in the place of who is the person who is willing to write the book? Like, who is that person? Um, what decisions does she need to make? How does she feel? You know, I'd say one of my biggest moments of like recognizing manifestation is for so long I wanted to speak on stages. And I just knew like, how do I reach more people? How do I talk to more people? And I loved, so I would think about like, what is that actual feeling of being on stage? Like, the uncomfortable feeling, like the hand sweat, the nervousness in my heart, like you're sweating and you're blinded by the light. Like I didn't know what that felt at that point in time because I'd never done it. But like you think on the movies, like, okay, what does it mean? Like standing in front of the crowd, they say, picture everyone naked. Do you even see them naked? Like, are they even there or the light's blinding you? Feeling the heat of that. And so when I then had the opportunity to speak on a stage, first of all, I just said yes because I was so excited about it. But then like all of those things started happening. Like breathing through them. Like my palms were sweating. I felt the heat on my face. Where's the blue mark on the stage? But I had known in my dream, in my vision, in the way that I thought about it for years and years and years, that specific feeling. I get off this stage and I crush it. Like I get off this stage and I throw my hands up and I talk to someone who says, like, I changed their life or I made them think about something different. Okay, you could do this. It doesn't even matter. It didn't even matter what I said. You can do this. And so I think that it goes the same for all of that. Whatever you're manifesting, you need to fully believe that you are capable of achieving that. If you're just trying to get the picture that you put on a vision board, like you're not fully there. You need to fully be ready to embrace the hardship, the heartache, the failure, the nervousness in your body, and then be willing to say yes to the success and feel that you are worth it.
I've got two more questions for you.
Yes.
Imagine someone listens to the conversation today and decides to intentionally redesign their life.
Mhm.
What is the very first action you hope they will take within the next 24 hours?
Write your life story. I hope that is what you do. There's so much power in your story. Don't try to be someone else. You are so incredibly unique. You have a gift to the world. Uncover it. Find the power in it. Get excited about it because no one gets to tell your story the way you get to tell your story. And just because something happened to you, reframe it, change the way you share it. And so I would start by starting from your childhood, your first memory, where you grew up, how you were raised, what your parents taught you, the lessons, your relationship with money, your first job, what you learned at that job, your second job, the time you got fired, the time you got the promotion, all the feelings that you have. This exercise should take you a while, but write your story. Then start to look for how things correlate. You know,
And I
how
don't
you,
think it matters at what age.
no.
I mean, I'm 65. I still feel like I'm still learning and there's so much I still want to achieve and I'm 65. I'm not looking to pack it in. People ask me all the time, when are you retiring? My kids ask me that. I said, when they drop me in the ground, then I'll be retired.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I love travel and I have lots of interest, but at the end of the day, I need to feel useful.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so I like working because I feel useful. Last question. 5 years from now, if readers fully embrace the 10 practices and mastering intentions, what kind of leaders and more importantly, what kind of people do you hope they will have become?
Ah, I want there to be more alignment with your mind, body, soul of how we're showing up, what we feel good about, and the people that we are passing our skills on to. It's not just about creating great business and great profit. Yes, those things are important, but it's about paying it forward to all of the people that want to surround themselves with you, that want to learn from you. So, how are you teaching them both the hard and the soft skills to be able to, for them to embody that in their life, in their family, so they create that trickle effect? And I think that's what's so important to me.
Well, I so enjoyed talking to you. I think you'll do great as a professor at Babson. I mean, as
Thank
an
you.
adjunct, because you won't be
Thank you.
giving up what you're doing. But I think you'll really enjoy the experience, and it will actually uh, enhance your new idea side of your brain. and you'll come up with a lot of new ideas because you'll hear students talk about things you never even considered before. And that's because you're going to be unlocking their potential.
Yeah.
So I wish you the best,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully you'll write another book and we'll have you back.
I would love that. I love this conversation so much. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure.
Talk soon.